Welcome. I'd like to call the June 25th Transportation Advisory Board meeting to order at 6:01. Today's meeting is a hybrid meeting. Our board is in person, but staff members of the public may be attending virtually. I see you. Staff, do you have a quorum?
We do, Chair. Micah and Cynthia have excused absences. Therefore, Ali and Carlos will be serving as regular members.
Our first item of business is to take action to approve minutes for our May 28th meeting. Are there any corrections to the draft meeting minutes that were provided? There are no objections. We can approve them. You don't need to take a vote on this. Okay.
Yeah.
Is that
Unanimously, yeah,
okay?
with unanimous consent. Yeah.
All right. Our next item of business is number 3 on the agenda, public comment. Staff, has anyone signed up for public comment? Don't see anyone.
Chair, no one has signed up for public comment, either in person or online.
So as we can see no public comment, we'll move to our next item of business. Regular business. We are on agenda item number 4. To our rules and regulations, and we'll pass it off to Jill.
Yes. Yeah. Hi, everybody. I think I've met most of you, but I'm not sure. Alia, you're not familiar. So nice to meet you. Lemire, I'm not sure if I've met you either. I'm the city clerk in Issaquah, and the clerk's office. We're behind the scenes and we're helping staff out with some of the logistics for your meetings. And we also kind of take care of your rules and regulations. So we have 13 advisory boards in the city, and each of them have their own set of rules. And they kind of just like guide some of the conduct of your meetings. They like talk about when your elections for officers are, the order of business of your agendas, like how to handle excused absences and things like that. And I have 3 changes I wanted to bring to you tonight to your rules, and then we'll be asking for you to consider taking a vote to incorporate the changes. So the first change is one that was sort of tab motivated, and this is changing the date of when your officers are elected. So I understand that you voted on your officers, and thank you, Chair and Vice Chair, for stepping up into that role at your May meeting. But I also heard some feedback from Thomas that it can feel a little challenging as a brand new member to then on your first meeting be voting for people you may have never met before to serve in a leadership role. Okay, so that's great. Okay, and that's not the first time we've heard that. I think part of the reason that chair elections are currently happening in May is because that's when the terms start. And so it ensures that, you know, someone's got a full year to be in that seat. But I think it's a very valid issue. And one of our other advisory boards amended their rules a couple months ago to have their election occur at the last meeting of the year. So that might be your November meeting, that might be your December meeting. And so I put forward some language in your rules to do the same thing. What that means is your current officers, there'd be elections again, you know, at the end of the year, a little sooner than a year. The only other impact I can see for that is that if someone's term is up on April 30th and they don't reapply or aren't reappointed, you might lose one of your chairs. And so you just need to have another election. So that's one of the proposed changes. I'll go through all 3 of them and then you can let me know if you have questions or if you'd like to offer some amendments. The second change would be to your virtual attendance policy. So when we were coming out of COVID, I brought a virtual attendance policy to all of our boards. And at the time, we were really trying to get people to come back into the meeting room to help, you know, there's just more synergy often when you're together physically. So I don't know if you've looked at your policy, but your board's policy is 5 of you have to be in the room. for you to have a meeting at all. So even if there's 3 of you in the room and 5 of you online, technically that wouldn't be a meeting according to your rules. So I'm proposing a modest change that says, I encourage you to be here in person, but if we have a quorum between those in the room and those virtually, you could still conduct your meeting. This might happen if there's like a weather event, hilly place, right? Some of you might live up high, not be comfortable driving down here. It just adds a little flexibility, and a lot of our other boards have opted to do that. So again, very optional. We still ask you to give Thomas a heads up if you're going to be virtual, just so he's aware and he knows where to look for you at the meeting. So that's the second change. Third change has 2 parts. And these are really more kind of cleanup things that I'm bringing forward. So again, love to hear if you have any input on them. The first one is, so if you've heard the term abstention before, usually when you think of abstaining, you don't vote. It's like you choose not to vote. But most of our board rules have this kind of unique provision where they say, if you choose not to vote, your vote is counted as a yes vote, which always found a little, funny. And I also just think it's not common knowledge. So most folks, I think when they abstain, they're just not voting. And so I am proposing to the boards to change that in your rules, where it would just hold the common definition. You abstain, not vote, not counted. However, caveat there, we want you to vote, even when it's hard. That's why you're here, to help us make hard decisions. And so we hope you would use that sparingly. And the rules would say that if you're planning to abstain, you should say that. So it's hard for us to just read as silence. Did you not notice you were supposed to be voting or whatnot? So we would hope that you would say, I'm planning to abstain for this reason. So it's clear to us how to record your vote or lack of vote. Second change, final change for me to share with you is for conflicts of interest. So some of you were at the training where I was talking about what a conflict of interest is on the board. I think it's really unlikely you're going to have a conflict of interest here, because most of the time you're making recommendations. You're not approving contracts like our city council does. It's going to be very unlikely. But you also have kind of an it's in all of our advisory board rules. It's a little, again, odd. Your rules say that if you have a conflict of interest, so say you own a company that provides unique traffic equipment, don't have good terminology for it, and you're considering weighing in on a project that would require that equipment, that could maybe be a conflict of interest, right? You're the owner, you would stand to benefit. Our rules say if you have that conflict, a majority of the board has to vote to let you not vote, which is just a little awkward. So feeling is, if you have a conflict of interest or you think you have on any of your agenda items, check in with Thomas. He'll refer you to our city attorney if he wants some help understanding that. And then we would just expect that you would not vote at that meeting. And the rules say, and this could be modified, but that you'd actually just leave the room for that part of the discussion and vote. So that's the change. Those are all the changes. And in your packet was, a red line version of your rules. So if you have any questions, feel free to let me know. Otherwise, that's it. Thank you.
Okay, for discussion, and I will start with Vice Chair Adam.
Thanks. I would like to propose an amendment to the changes. Thomas, I don't know if you can bring the red line version up on the screen.
I can use it.
So in general, I'm very in favor of these changes. I think they'll simplify things and make things a lot more intuitive. There's one part in here that I think might be a little bit awkward, which is that we require that a board member who has stated that they have a conflict of interest has to leave the meeting room. And there are implications for whether we have a quorum after that probably are just unnecessary. I think given the change to the rules for what an abstaining vote counts as, I think it's reasonable to just say they must abstain from the vote. So what I'd like to propose is that in section 9.c, second paragraph, replace that with, after the conflict of interest is stated, the board member will abstain from the vote.
Any other thoughts on the agreement with that or some concerns with someone who stays still being? Well, also, if you could look up your son.
Like abstention implying that you have to leave there as well. I'm not sure, but I guess for another note, something I had just that came up is for the first part of these those rule changes when it comes to the leadership elections. I think it'd be better to have them in June to June. Just have like that first full meeting, just because I think when we're thinking about the end of calendar year, it's a little bit challenging, I think, to get close to that quorum, especially the December meeting to November meeting, because in our past experience, we always have to reschedule the November meeting here at TAB because that falls during Thanksgiving. And then December meeting is either a special meeting at the beginning of the month or doesn't happen at all. And so I think November, December is just a very shaky time to do leadership elections and hopefully get as much quorum as possible. And so I think June is kind of an ideal time because, I think we're still kind of like just before people go for holidays during the summer. So I think June should be the month.
I think that's fair, but as a new member, I would say even after one meeting, it's kind of hard to determine and truly have like an informed vote on who should be the chair and vice chair, because I don't really know much people yet and who's, in my opinion, like would be a good chair or a vice chair. I think it still seems a little soon that after just one meeting where we're voting on who should be the chair and vice chair for.
Is there another convenient time here to do it?
Ask staff a question on the top of your head, the other boards and commissions. When do they typically have their elections, or are they also the same as us?
Yeah. Yes, so you're kind of forging the way. So we had one other board. Well, I shouldn't say that. We have one commission whose members start January 1st. So their schedule's a little different. And we had another board shift to the last meeting of the year, which is what we put here. But you can decide what works well. And also we'll share that as other boards bring this issue up. So you may not be alone in that. But I can't think, other than the issue I shared about just the term ending, I can't think of any significant impacts. Which month you hold those?
I think it would be better to have it closer, as close as possible to the new term, just to give like more opportunity in terms of like more legitimate, mandates, etc. And so I think it would work pretty well to have it start in June. But yeah, like the current status quo, I would say, is just doesn't really work very well, because I think I faced this when I was chair, just like coordinating about, how does the May meeting work? Because that's technically the end of the thing. And so I was like, oh shoot, maybe I should have thought about, doing something in April, like just vote on giving me permission to run the May meeting. But we decided not to go for it. But so May is obviously not a good time to do it, because it just doesn't work out very well. I feel like June might be.
So just to add some clarity to the discussion here, I think the proposal is that we do it at the end of the year in December, is it?
The last meeting of
The last
whatever
meeting,
that
it might
was.
be December. Alternative would be June. There's a lot of middle ground here. It's been stated that the June meeting might not be enough time to get familiar with the board members enough to have an informed vote. Perhaps 3 or 4 meetings in might be a better alternative. We don't hit the limited attendance at the end of the year, that's possible. We can probably look at the statistics on it, but I've also noticed that that's a thing. And so maybe, September, target the meeting around September. Is a reasonable middle ground, you can vote on that.
So I was wondering, is there a problem with what I think what Julian's saying is that there wouldn't be somebody to lead the meetings in the interim period, or is there some way to like carry over?
No,
Do you know what section specifically that is?
So the current chairs would serve until the new chairs were elected.
Yeah,
So, and the best practice is to let the chairs like even complete the meeting at which the officers are elected, and then they would chair the next meeting. The only time it could be a little awkward is if you lose your chair in April, that May meeting, the vice chair would just get the meeting started and you'd have the election for the chair. So I don't see, you shouldn't have there can be a little awkwardness there. With the timing, if you're convening a meeting without a sitting chair, but I think no matter when you have it, that dynamic's not going to change.
because I would be in support of doing it sometime around September. Because it sounds like then the chairs would have the same length of tenure, it just wouldn't be exactly synchronized with when new members turn over. But I do think that, like, I joined the TAP last year and immediately was assaulted by, which of these people should be the chair? I'm just like, I can't make an informed vote, like, I just kind of abstained.
So it sounds like we're in agreement that we don't want it to be May.
Yeah.
So we agree that it needs to be changed. But differing from the proposal of doing it at the last meeting of the year due to
I like the middle ground.
like our September meeting that's been floated. I personally think that makes that makes a lot of sense. It's a few meetings in to get to know people.
Yeah.
Sure. Ask this. Do you need us to make a motion and vote for each of these items, or we do it for long runs? Okay.
There's been some proposals, so I think we should make multiple. Oh, it looks like.
Yeah, let's. Go ahead, Hank.
So I have a question on the comment when it says only regular members shall serve as officers. Regular versus what, temporary, you mean, Gishan?
Alternate, yeah.
Alternate?
And just to add clarification, that's because alternates are not able to vote unless a regular member is not present, in which case that alternate could step into the vote. So if you couldn't be an officer if you couldn't vote, right? Yeah.
Is that stated explicitly in the rules?
I think it is, yeah.
It is. It's a cost. Okay, so then I will propose a motion to amend our rules and regulations by adopting amendment to Article 3 by moving the officer elections to the TAB's September meeting. Did I word that how it's helpful for you to staff?
Yeah, and something else you could do is move the amendments as a whole with the change to change it to September and with the change to remove the need to exit the room. Have everyone vote, or you can do it one at a time, like you just did. So you just go ahead. Go ahead with this change to September.
Maybe before, if we're gonna do, which I think it's. Julian said something kind of linking the abstention from leaving the room, and I just want to be clear, those are not linked. in the wording of this, and nor is the proposal to do that. It's simply that if somebody has a conflict of interest, they abstain from voting, as abstaining from voting is written in the rules here.
I think I just, little, sidetracked. a little bit.
Understood. Kind of hit heavy there, but.
Okay. I think, no, I agree. If we are all okay with it, I think we can make one vote on multiple changes instead of doing each of them. I'm seeing some of the nodding. Okay. It's probably a bit simpler so.
Do you want me to make a motion for it?
Yeah, do you feel it was, yeah.
Okay, I move to vote on the proposed changes with 2 amendments. The first being that the term for officers begin September 1st and go through August 31st. The second being in section 9, subsection C, second paragraph, replaced with after the conflict of interest is stated, the board member will abstain from voting.
A second.
I'll second.
All in favor of the proposed amendments?
Aye.
All right.
I think we have unanimous approval. Next order of business is depot training.
You share my screen here. Me again. So I'm here to talk about one of my favorite topics, which is just a little bit of parliamentary procedure training. I'm not going to go deep. I'm just going to talk a little bit about some rules for discussion. Yes.
If I could say, I think for this, we were gonna maybe mute the recording, or unless you want to, should we mute
We could do I can do my,
the training?
and then if you're okay with that.
Sounds great.
Okay.
Okay.
Awesome. So we have a little exercise we're going to do at the end of this, and we'll turn the mic off for that. So apologies to Haney, won't be able to participate, but just to give you a little practice with some of the things I'm going to talk to you about. So I shared this information with boards now and then, just to make sure we have a safe space for people to participate at your meetings. So I'm going to get started here. So something to think about with your group, which is different than a lot of meetings that we're all in for our jobs or other organizations, is that you're part of a deliberative body. So you're here to like work through issues together, but, and you each have a vote if you're a regular member or an alternate serving in the absence of a regular member. You each get to equally weigh in on the issues. There's not like a hierarchy here, right? There's not a hierarchy if you've been here longer. There's not a hierarchy if you're the chair. All of you get to have an equal opportunity to share your viewpoint. And then, but the outcomes that we're looking for out of your group is we're looking for a majority. And so I'm going to talk about that a little bit, is how do you kind of figure out what a majority of you are agreeing with, which can sometimes be a little hard in a group dynamic. So I'm going to talk a little bit about some rules for discussion, and then I'm going to talk about start by talking about how you might be providing recommendations. So you just had a vote. You just had a kind of a formal proposal where you got to say aye or nay. But the other way that you're providing input, I was looking at your minutes from your last meeting, is just you're talking. You're just each sharing your input. There's not necessarily a vote taken, but you're informally providing your feedback, and Thomas is helping to synthesize that, or the chair. And so I'm going to talk a little bit more about those in a minute. So the reason we want to talk to you about your discussion guidelines is because for kind of 2 reasons. The first reason is there are 9 of you. There's actually 11 of you, but 9 regular members and 2 alternates. That was by design. There was thought put in by the city council and mayor at the time to how many members should be part of this group, how many voices from the community should be weighing in on these issues. And so one of the things that we want to make sure of is that everyone, all 11 of you, are weighing in and feel comfortable doing so. So that's the goal. And so I'm going to be talking to you about some rules that can feel a little formal for your discussion, but part of it is to try and encourage everyone and give everyone space to say what they want to say, to provide their input. And when we don't have these, it can, the more natural thing for us to do is get into that conversational mode, which can be fine, but it also can be some people can dominate. That's just a natural thing, right? And then we also want to have civility in your meetings. So we want to make sure it's a safe space. And so having a little bit of process can help with that. So these are some rules. So your rules adopt Robert's rules, which is a really common parliamentary authority. And there actually are rules for how discussion is supposed to happen. It doesn't mean you have to do this constantly, that, someone needs to say you're breaking a rule anytime you forget to do this, but we would hope that these would be norms, at least at your meetings. And they can seem informal. I know there's a smaller group here tonight and you were a little informal with how you were saying you wanted to speak. That's okay. But I do want to share with you some best practices. So the first is, ideally, you're getting the chairs okay before you start talking. So, that can be your nameplates up. That can just be like a hand wave, like eye contact, like I have something to say. And that's to prevent what can become more heated dialogue if people are just sort of interjecting or sitting next to each other and they start, kind of going back and forth, then the rest of the room is left out, right? So it helps the chair. She's kind of helping to facilitate the discussion. And then something else I want to mention is that, really the goal should be that no one's talking twice before everyone's had that chance to weigh in. I think and I think I have a slide in here. One of the ways that you can do that, especially if it's a bigger issue, so there might be more feedback, is just to go around the room. So where you would just kind of, start with Derek and just, do comments, you just go one by one. Otherwise, it might be a little hard for the chair or vice chair to keep track, but the goal would be to kind of, you would come with your prepared remarks. And then if you have thoughts that come up when your other members are talking, you kind of hold those, you can jot them down. And then when everyone else had their chance, they come back to you and then you. Again, that's to try and encourage everyone to be participating here. I feel like I've seen such a respectful dynamic here, but I'm just going to share with you because when things do get more heated, these issues can come up, but we don't want back and forth dialogue. So it might be that there's 2 people that are like really passionate about an issue coming to the tab. And what we want to avoid is having those 2 people kind of start having, like I was saying, like a conversation. So the idea is, you speak, next person speaks, anybody else before we're going to go back. And in fact, if it's just looping where the same 2 people are going and going, it would be appropriate for the chair to kind of try and move things along. It's also just respectful of everyone's time, right? And so another comment here is, and this is also probably pretty intuitive, but just trying to keep the thoughts focused and remarks focused on your agenda item. Not that you can't bring up something that has some relationship, but we're trying to keep you focused, keep you getting towards outcomes. And then the last rule of debate is that personal remarks are really not appropriate. Robert's rules says you shouldn't be really bringing up personal things as part of the discussion. All right, so like I said, one of the effective ways to do this, and actually I think it can be effective too if people are hesitating to speak up, because maybe no one wants to go first, that round robin can be, it doesn't mean everyone has to talk, you can pass, but it just provides a little order to the discussion. So the next thing I want to talk about for a minute is just getting to outcomes. And the reason I want to talk to you about this is twofold. One is because we take your feedback and we do things with it. And so we don't want to have to infer so say you talk for half an hour about concurrency, I think was the topic at your last meeting. We don't want to have to try and suss out what you were trying to say. We want it to be clear at the end of that discussion, okay, what was the direction that was provided? for staff, also it can be nerve wracking because we don't want to portray what came out of that meeting. So it's good to, it's really, I know my favorite is when it's verbalized at the end of the conversation. We'll talk about that a little bit. Another reason that outcomes are important, something I was thinking about is when you send a recommendation to the city council and it says that there was unanimous, the tab unanimously supported something, I think that has some weight. You know, it says all of you like that. And so, but if you're not kind of summarizing things or maybe even taking a vote, how do we know if everyone agrees? So that's one reason. The second reason is we carry your recommendations forward to a lot of places. So Thomas is relaying your feedback maybe to his supervisor, to the department directors, to the mayor, to the council committee, to the city council. He's having to summarize that. So we're putting it out there. So again, we don't want to misrepresent. We want to make sure we've got it real clear what you were, what a majority of the tab was recommending. Okay, so we're just a couple slides left. So we're going to talk a little bit more about those outcomes, but so for your standard agenda items, you're probably already have got the rhythm of this, right? So typically your staff's going to present, you're going to have a chance to ask questions. Then that's the discussion time. It's where you're telling us what you think. And then ideally we have that outcome, either in the case of a vote or in the case of a summary. So for this, so say no, there's no vote taking. You had to take a vote on your rules. It's required. 5 of you have to vote to amend your rules. But again, a lot of times you don't need to necessarily vote. You're just going around and sharing what you think. So when that happens, we want you to follow those rules of discussion I went over earlier. We also, and this number 2 and 3 is a little bit more focused on the chair and staff, but we also want to kind of get clarity on significant points that are made. So this might be, I've seen this happen. I sit through a lot of meetings as part of my job. And so there might be discussion and all of a sudden one member says something like kind of a big idea. Like trying to think, what would a big idea be? We want a second access road up to Talus. Something big, it's not a big idea. And then no one says anything. And then the staff were going, so do they all agree? Or do they all disagree? Or what? And so as the chair, and you did a really nice job of that earlier when Adam made his comments, but you know, you're kind of like, so what does everyone else think about this? And head nodding, I think, can be useful. I mean, I would say if it is like a sort of a big idea, I do think taking a vote on it might be helpful too. But we want to kind of, again, the goal is to figure out what do 5 or a majority of those who are present, what are they thinking? And so trying to tease out your viewpoints. And then number 3, I do think it would be useful as you, and this can be a hard thing to do, but I do think it'd be useful if you're not taking a vote at the end of your items that someone attempt to summarize. You know, the vice chair did a great job putting that motion together tonight. It could be the vice chair, it could be staff, it could be the chair, or even another member who might volunteer to provide a summary. Just to make sure you're all clear. And then they can say, is there anything I missed? And you can be sitting there going, I made this point that I didn't hear. And then you're all kind of agreeing, yes, you're comfortable with that recommendation. And if you're not, you should say something. You should say, I'm actually really not, you know, I don't fully agree with that 3rd point. You can take a quick vote, see are a majority of you supportive of that. So shouldn't be afraid of voting. It can feel a little formal, but it's also a nice way because you are a bigger group to figure out what people are thinking. It's okay to disagree. Consensus is a goal, but it's not always possible, and that's all right. So you had some practice with this more formal approach, and this might be something if you're that you might want to do. I know it's been a little while since you made your final recommendation on like the mobility master plan, but if you have a big thing you've been working on for a while, it might be kind of nice to have your recommendation be a formal vote, just to kind of show, yes, we've done our work and we're, for example, maybe unanimously supported. So the process went really well tonight. So someone in that case, and also, you know, in the case of an amendment like someone had tonight, it's nice if it's in writing. You guys made it work. They were pretty simple amendments, so that's okay. But how that goes, someone makes a proposal, someone seconds it, the chair restates it. That's nice if that's done. But it's also okay if you forget that stuff. And then you do get a chance to discuss. even if you've been discussing a topic, if you're gonna take a vote, there should be another opportunity for discussion. Just any last thoughts you have, and then you take the vote, yes, no. And then the chair kind of says, you know, this passes, this fails, or whatnot. Just like you did tonight. Great job of that. So I just wanted to go over those two, just wanted to go over that outcome section with you, because again, it is really important. We're so happy for your time here and we value your input, and we really want to make sure we're getting it right and that we're walking away with clear direction. So, and again, you can help, any members can help with these things that I'm sharing with you tonight. I know we have 2 people who have volunteered to be in leadership positions, but they need help sometimes too. So if you can certainly, if you're moving through an agenda item, you can say, hey, do you mind if we quickly recap our key points from that recommendation? Okay, with that, we will do mics off for a few minutes. Thomas, do you have are there any agenda items after this item?
Staff, chair reports, but no. This.
Okay, so maybe for Haney and anyone else on virtually, I think we'll need about 15 minutes for this, 10 to 15 minutes, so.
I have
Sure.
Before we do the activity portion of this, is it okay to open it up to any questions? Okay. Does anyone have any questions about the presentation? 30 minutes.
So I was wondering, I think I get the meaning of the personal being like no personal attacks. You said do not bring personal things in. I feel like oftentimes when we're discussing things with the tab, there's a lot of personal connection to the projects, because obviously we all live in Issaquah and we're talking about Issaquah. I'm assuming that talking about like, well, I live on this place of Issaquah and this is going to affect me this way is fine.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Great question. Yes, that's just good. In fact, you're gonna do a script, and absolutely that's gonna color things. It just would be best to avoid talking about other people's.
That's what I assumed it was,
life.
but you said keep personal things out, and I was like, it feels like
Yeah,
most of what we do is personal.
Thank you. That's an important distinction, and yeah, you got that right. Okay, so we can go ahead and use the room. So let's see here. So I think we would be back, should we say at like 6:55? 6:50, I might, let's say 6:55. I
Okay,
think
that sounds good.
And folks online hear us again?
And then, oh, yeah.
Oh, here he is.
Next item of business is reports, so staff.
Yep, thank you, Chair. As most of you may know, June is LGBTQ Pride Month. However, it is also Ride Transit Month. So if you have not ridden transit, I encourage you to do so this month. Also wanted to mention that next month's meeting, we will have more discussions on concurrency. We were given direction to come back with transit level of service, so that will be a topic that we bring back. Tab will also review proposed updates to the city's comprehensive plan and transportation element and mobility action plan. So feedback received from Tab will then sort of be fed into that. And so those are going to be the main topics for next month's meeting. I could probably move into another topic of discussion. I just received an email from Micah, who has mentioned that he effective immediately will be stepping down from the tab. So just wanted to share that with the group, and also thank him for his many years of being on the tab.
Thanks for the reports, and I plan on reaching out to Micah just via email to thank him for serving. He's on this board for 2 years, at least a term, probably, and so sad to see him go. And this means that we'll have some more of alternates then, if we do any sort of all those, which for the next meetings, items, it sounds like that maybe could be something desired since those are bigger items.
Yep, could be. Yep.
Okay. Chair report. This is my first month as chair. I have nothing to report. Thank you all for dealing with me as I am on the learning curve. Any other business, any other board members or staff have anything to share? Okay, with that, 6:57. There are no objections. We are adjourned.
Yeah, really.
That's the speediest meeting.
Thank you.
That was like last meeting.
Hi, Penny.
I'm very-